Hello, welcome to the Swatches live stream. I'm Clint, and this is Diana. We are going to be doing something a little different than the normal portfolio reviews. So this time we are going to be just looking at some paintovers of the work from Ilya, doing his Warhammer 40K art. I've already prepped the paintovers in Photoshop in order to save time, and the fact that painting in Photoshop while streaming on my computer lags everything out. So yeah, we're going to be going through it, looking at those changes, and discussing the art principles, kind of the ideas behind them. And if you guys have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We'll be trying to take those as we're going along. And if there's any issues with the stream, please, of course, if you're joining us live, let us know if there is an issue. Right, looks like everything's working pretty well. It looks like I'm just sitting in dark shadow right now. It's actually really just bright over there.
Yeah, it's just
it's just the window.
Camera won't balance it out.
Yeah. Okay, let me move some things around for a second.
Oh, hi everybody. Hi Elvira, Marian, Shohan, Alexi, Anthony, Verena, Sven. Hello.
Okay, I think we're ready to go. People saying no issues. Very good. Everything's green on that. All right, this particular stream is being sponsored by us. No, just a quick announcement. If you've not been to the website, we do have a new product that we just launched, which is the Career and Portfolio Strategy Kit. This is designed to fast forward your art career. It only takes about a day to go through this, watching through the videos, filling out the stuff on the questionnaire, and putting in your plan information. This is essentially the accumulation of all of this information that we try to give people in consults, on one-on-ones, in classes. For years, we've done portfolio presentations for our students. And it used to be that this is just information that we gave out to the students in the live classes at the end of class. But we've just compiled it all together and expanded it. People are always looking for briefs to build a new portfolio around. So we made hundreds and hundreds of original briefs for you guys on a variety of different subject matter, and just walks you through everything you need to know about the industry, about setting goals for yourself in order to get you into the industry as quickly as possible, and that your work is going to be as competitive as possible given whatever top you do your art on. Anyway, that is out there. It is available on the Swatches Academy site. Do note that this is included as a bonus content with any other course.
Yeah, it's actually just appended to
Yes.
every course. So when you buy a class, or if you've already bought a class, at the end of the last lesson, you'll see a bonus in the same course module, and it's just all in there.
Yep. Okay, that's all we're talking about that, unless anybody has any questions as we're going along. Now, we took a look at Ilya's work a couple of weeks ago in the general portfolio review live stream, and it has so much involved work that we only gave a very topical kind of discussion on it. And we asked him about, hey, why don't we just do like a paintover stream? We can just, note a couple of things and we can have time to actually implement that. He was cool with it, so that's what I've done. There's a lot of pieces here. Obviously, we're not going through all of these. I think I did 5. I think I did paintovers on about 5 of these. And to keep this from going long, yes, I did prep some of this. I do want to note to Ilya, and Ilya, if you are here live, give a shout out, let us know.
I don't know if he's here.
Okay. So we're going to be switching back and forth between kind of talking about to Ilya about the work and what he can do to improve this. And just talking to the general audience about the art principles and stuff that are in play here. So some of the pieces I think are quite strong. Like that's a pretty cool piece. I love the perspective of it and stuff. This piece also really cool. I think this is high level. I do suggest, Ilya, that you can get out some of the weaker pieces, because when you have a piece like this, then you have a piece like this, they're just not in the same boat. I'm not saying that it couldn't be better, but I'm just thinking you could probably slim 30% of the lower end of your portfolio, and it's going to give the impression that the whole thing is considerably stronger.
Oh, Ilya is here.
Oh, yeah?
I just didn't recognize his
Okay.
username.
Cool. So that one I thought was a little weak. This one, too, it's not as strong as some of the others, and either it needs to be dropped out and you say, okay, well, that was some good practice, or you need to put a considerable amount of more time into it. Everything is just kind of getting flat. Like the gun is completely flat to our view, and it's getting really contrasty on this face, and the face just does not have the level it needs. Overall, it's just not separating out the pieces and the planes as much as it should. So that's a little negative. We're not going to spend much time, so let's start looking at some of these. I did these right here. We'll just start with this one in no particular order. So let's go dark gray here. Cool. So this is the first piece we'll look at. Really nice piece. There aren't inherent flaws with this, and I want to be clear right off the bat for everyone. Ilya is putting in tons of time into this, into incredibly complex images, lots of figures, a lot of action going on. We're not going into this saying, okay, let's fix the problems. This is about how do you plus the image. All right, because the stuff is painted well, they're posed well, you have good composition and stuff. It's just, if we could get a little bit more out of it, what can we do? So overall, this is a classic compositionally. Let me just make a new layer here to see if I can do anything. Just using that triangle for a group. This is a really common thing if you ever need to do an arrangement of characters like a D&D group or something. Find some way to make a triangle out of them. And that's probably going to be your best bet. That's what we went with here. And, oh, I also want to show this. Let me open this. I went and downloaded a bunch of Warhammer art. And, you know, I'm going to just open these in Photoshop. Zoom in. Anytime you guys want to do something like this, go back, look at some existing pieces you already have, figure out how to improve them. You got to have a metric that you're measuring against. So go out and you find the best work you can of a similar subject matter. So I went and looked, these are just other 40K art pieces. I don't know who made all these. But these were like one character scenes. And you can see there's a lot of ways to go about this, but that was my example there. And here's some scenes. So I was looking at these to get kind of ideas of how they do it. 40K really leans into, it's metal, right? It's like that classic kind of metal art. It's very contrasty, lots of action, a lot of grit. It flies in the face a bit of some art principles or I would say guidelines of like, you know, don't get overly busy somewhere. Okay, no, that's part of 40K's charm, is that they almost overwhelm you with the amount of things going on. And I think the idea is that it helps convey that sort of freneticness of the battle.
Like a chaotic energy.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you're actually intentionally overwhelming the senses with lots of pops of color and lots of contrast, but not so much that it's dialed up to 11 everywhere all the time. There are places that are more desaturated. There are places with less detail, right? You're controlling it amidst all this kind of chaos. So here, what I see as kind of the issues to boost is just legibility with the planes. So looking at it in black and white, we're getting a lot of very similar planes. That this is all kind of just one dark mass. And we really should kind of have a plane along here. And probably a plane here and potentially one like there. Just to help separate our hero characters out of the fray. Now, they can blend into each other a little bit more, and that's okay. But it's places like this where these values and these tones are getting really similar. And they're just kind of getting lost amongst all this stuff. So that would be the priority, is to come in here and start doing some separation. You see this a lot in the other ones. They intentionally find ways to put lights behind areas. So it's like, why is that light there? Who cares, right? There needs to be a light there so that we can have some good, what we call value pairs. It's this value, it's the foreground value against the background value, and making sure that they're different values. Now, there are some places where you don't need to do that much. Like these can run together. They're considered a group. So that's fine. But this is a different plane and a hero character. So we can pop them out. So with that, just adding a little there. Pops those guys out. Immediately their silhouettes read a lot. Now I don't need it to read everywhere, but at least there is good. Now we're doing a little changing here. Trying to add a sense of a little more depth. This guy is obviously further away because he's significantly smaller than this guy. In order to help kind of sell that distance, then we're just going to add in a little atmospheric. And we want to start playing this up. For me, I think this is one of the coolest things in the image. And I think it's supposed to be cooler. It's like right in the middle. But we're not really getting that electric, lightning red sort of feeling from it.
To hit it with more contrast.
Yeah. So we want to see this light affecting some of this metal in a stronger way. And that would just start dialing it up. And in order even to help intensify that, potentially shading this side so that side looks even brighter, like there's a darker shadow from it, enriching the darks around there. Okay, and that's where we're going to start getting some boost. Linear dodge. That whole area. Now remember, anytime that you have a lot of atmospherics, and there is a lot of atmospherics in this scene, that would be moisture, fog, or in this case, smoke and dust. Right? A lot of smoke and dust. When you put a light effect in smoke and dust, that whole area is going to glow. And we're not really getting that. But we are trying to write a line between what would be a little more realistic and what would be good just for the illustration. So in this case, I think that does add to the overall feeling. Another thing we're doing here is giving it the lightsaber treatment, that it's super saturated on the edge, and then it's basically white in the brighter area, instead of just letting it be red. Now, I don't know if this is accurate or not, what I've done. Maybe they don't glow that bright, I don't know. But anyway, I think that looks cool. So that would be the kind of treatment there. Next up, we've got just trying to separate this out a little bit. Like, I'm just going to let that leg go in a silhouette. That's fine. I don't really need that information there. And then just separating these out a little bit. The next one is looking at these guys. We're not really getting true black here, and I feel like we could. You see the difference? We're just getting this kind of bluishness, and I don't know of a good reason why we're not getting a truer black. So that's why at least punching it and trying to balance that a little bit. I still think I can push that further, get that deeper. I'm not loving the purple, but I think something in that range. In order just to have a fuller range of values, because everything is just kind of muted.
Maybe go halfway.
Yeah.
It's too purple like that. Yeah.
So something like that. Okay. Next up, there is this greenishness to this, and I feel like I started losing that a bit. So I just want to introduce like a little photo filter. Just give the top part a bit more of that green, so you have that kind of green, red, green, orange kind of dynamic. And that's pretty common with Warhammer, is that you just have these abrupt color contrast. Of this kind of dull green and then this red, the blue and the gold, the red and the blue, right? And it's realistic a lot of times in the way it renders something, but not necessarily in the way that the colors interact. But that's okay. This whole subject is a kind of graphic quality to it.
It's combative in itself. Yeah.
Okay, that was most of the just plain separation scene. We can get this a lot smaller now, and we can tell the shapes easier. The last thing is, I do think that we could pose this guy a little bit better, keep as much as we can, but it's just kind of a weak pose right now. Then this arm is just disappearing into the shape of the body. And so the arm is like essentially coming straight at the camera, which makes it feel really short. So if we were to adjust it and have him like something like that, then that's a much more heroic pose. Then the silhouette is much easier to read. So we're like raising the arm up so that it's separated from the silhouette of the body. And moving that leg out so that it's a broader, more powerful stance. And we're also like letting the cape, instead of the cape drifting down and kind of up, we do more of the opposite. We let it billow up. This is a push of power, like this. Okay. Well, that's what we have for that one. And, hopefully that's helpful. Hopefully people get, some ideas from that. We'll take a look at some of the others. Go back one. Okay, let's take a look at this one.
Oh, this is very cool.
Yeah, this is a cool scene. Let's be clear. I have a very surface level understanding of Warhammer 40K. I watched a couple of videos just so I know a little bit of the lore, but I don't know who any of these people are. I don't know what factions they're coming from. I am not critiquing any of the character designs because I don't know what is accurate. All I'm really looking at is art technical information. So I think this is working pretty well as is, but Okay, I didn't do a paint over of this, but I will note it. It does feel like some of this is getting more unfinished than it needs to. Especially this, like it feels like this is coming towards the camera. And it is pretty close to camera, but it's really messy. And it's not clear to me where we are. I don't know what this is. And maybe a proper Warhammer fan would be...
Is this inside or outside?
Yeah, would be familiar with that. To me, I'll just tell you. To me, it feels like we're in some kind of laboratory. And like, are these like test tubes or something? And people are coming out. I don't know. Yeah, I can't even tell if we're inside or outside. So I would suggest if time could be taken to develop the background some more.
Just to clarify.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but I didn't do that because I don't know where it's supposed to be. So for this, again, I think we can get a little better separation. This one is clearly about this guy more than anyone else. But he's not really getting the sort of prominence that the piece might or should be affording him. Okay, and let's also pull up. Another thing that I really do suggest is that we've got to up the quality on the head and face. This has anatomical issues, and it's not lit as strongly as it could be for a 40K piece. So here, just anatomically, we're looking up at this guy, but we're still seeing a lot of the head here. So, we need to find some references. This guy is the closest angle-wise, so that's kind of what I looked at for that. And even lighting-wise, that's not off too much if you change the colors. And the other ones I just kind of glanced at. So, I'm trying to first just get the head a little closer anatomy-wise. And then I'm going to start it by kind of shading it down and then adding the lights back into it. There, we're kind of getting in that territory. And so you can see the sort of difference we have there. Because we're getting this purple light here. We're getting the purple light on her. We're getting the purple light on some of this other stuff. I think that would be a great way to kind of pull out the forms and infuse just a lot more color. Mm-hmm. Jen Steeler Colt. If you say so, that sounds right. Okay. Just boosting the exposure a little bit. Okay, let's start separating this guy out a little bit as well. I can see some work being done. There is a little bit there, but I'd lean into it some more, create more separation. Because this guy is obviously significantly closer to the camera than that guy. I mean, just scale-wise. He's got to be like half the distance the camera is him. So we'll just help with that. And then same thing between these two. We're looking at the values. Just light and dark, we're running a lot of the same values between there. And that's what you want to avoid. You want to avoid the foreground and the background values of two different objects sharing very similar values.
Because it makes them flat.
Yeah. Now, there are times where you can let them bleed together. Like this guy's leg, bleeds into that. Or this guy's silhouetted leg bleeds into the shadow over there. But it's for more trivial areas. Areas that are not focal points.
It's actually areas you want to de-emphasize.
Yes. Yeah. I don't want to de-emphasize this. She's a focal point. So I want to clarify the value separation. So doing that. And here we're just going in, we're playing with some of the lights. Okay. So over here, I'm toning this guy down a little bit just because this like violet color is really strong. So I'm just glazing it over, just taking it down one notch. And then introducing a little of the bluish teal light back there along the ring to help just connect those together a little bit. In him, emphasizing this side light, introducing a little more of the purple light so it's justified as being on the head. Better separation here. Again, one plane in front of another plane. And just popping that guy out a little bit. Over here, you could leave this the way it was. For my flavor, I'd probably add a little extra glow light back there. Okay, again, just some small edits, little edge lights on those guys to pop them out since we added the other boost light back here. Over here, since this guy's so close to us, I think we could really see a bit more damage and grime on him. He's just pretty clean. There's like no real scratches, and like he's wiping out all these things, but there's like no blood smears or that sort of stuff. So I would just add in some of that. Okay. Now what we want to do, that's this guy. Okay. The next thing I want to do is just address the sizes of these. They're painted really well, but they're all about the same size. And that means that nobody really has predominance. And if you can, stagger the sizes a little bit. Now, we pretty much know that like he's closest, then it's her, and then it's this thing. So I'm going to just make that guy a little smaller. And then I'm going to leave her about where she is. I'm going to make this guy a little bigger. So now we have like really close foreground guy. This guy's a little closer, she's further away, and he's in the background.
It actually is a better interaction with these two guys.
They feel like they're more on the right plane now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's some areas that don't mesh up real well because I didn't do the whole thing. In order to give him a little more room visually, I'm just shifting this guy down a little bit. We just need him there, but we don't necessarily need to see quite as much. So I'm just giving the importance to the main character over this character.
10 out of 10. Well, it's your artwork, so.
Okay, what else? Oh yeah, I just put that in there to mention the background. I don't know what this place is, but something back there would be helpful. Yeah, this is that. Okay. So I can flip this on and off and kind of see the overall difference. Let me back out so you get the impression of it smaller. It's not a massive change, but I don't think it needs a massive change. It's just optimizing the separation and the sizes a little bit. Okay. Again, if somebody has questions, feel free to ask, put those in.
Is that logo supposed to be there?
Is that logo supposed to be there?
Yeah, or is it just for us?
Oh, no, I think I forget that YouTube adds that. We can just switch our webcam to this side.
I wasn't sure what was going on.
No.
I just noticed it.
I think it shows it. In your opinion, I've got to move it out from my webcam here. In your opinion, is it correct that most important characters should be higher or taller in the frame? I mean, generally speaking, yes.
Should be bigger.
They need to be given prominence by some means. For Warhammer, that is often this one. Putting them higher, it's putting them centered. Now this one's off to the side, but he's clearly the only one that takes up a lot of room. Same thing here. It's clear this guy's in the lead, even though he's on the side. But you're giving them the most light, the most detail. You see them full body. Everyone else has, more murky tones around them that they kind of bleed into.
Or it's like more indistinguishable from
Yeah.
the others.
They're more unique, usually in appearance. Yeah. Put them, if you make a triangle and you don't put your main person at the top, I would think that's probably a mistake. Okay. We'll say that. Which one to take a look at next? Let's see. Let's take a look at this one. Beautiful big scene here.
Yeah, this is really cool. I love these colors, that yellow and the blue. I really like that.
Yeah, this is a really good combination. I think this is one of the strongest pieces. I'm not going to suggest doing anything other than just maximizing the real estate a little bit by making certain things a little bigger and just shifting them. Okay? Because the storytelling here is excellent. Big guy back there, this main guy.
His armor
here.
is so cool.
Yeah, and Ilya, this is a crazy amount of work. I mean, just everything, every little, paint line on their armor, every little gold sheen, and so many people. And you've done really well, and everybody else can notice this, like, this guy's defined, and this guy's defined, and then it starts getting not really defined. We just start getting shapes that just become indistinguishable. But like we get this guy, but then the rest of these just kind of are shapes. And that's the way that you have to handle a scene like this, because they don't need to be defined.
You can't see them at full size anyway.
Yeah.
If you're looking at the full image, you can't see that.
Okay, so let's start looking at some edits here. I'm going to start, I think we start with this guy, maybe?
Maybe.
Let's see. Oh, no, I start with this guy. The background guy, I just think that whatever this thing is, let's just treat it as being slightly closer and even bigger. So I'm just scaling that guy up. We'll put these guys back in. Okay. I'm just
One
putting
of the
him
main
up.
things I think on this piece was trying to create more of a distinction in sizes
Yeah.
between the guys. So make them more distinctly different sizes.
Okay, so something like that. And then putting some of these guys back in. So that was like paint out and then getting this whole side a little closer. Make them feel like the combat is tighter than what we're getting. And also just making use of the space. Like, we got a lot of sky up here. We had sky over where that guy was. And this is just kind of dead space. I'm not saying that you can't have some sky, but let's just try to boost a little bit. Moving this guy up. We're going to shift some of these guys in the foreground, and we just need this guy up and over a little bit in order to get him still be visible. Okay, boosting in some... this makes more sense once I get the other layers turned on. So here we are. We're moving this guy closer. I'll flip this on and off and you can see the difference here. So those guys are being made a little bigger. All right? And then that's why we had to move this other guy. Because otherwise he's getting lost there. So we're just shifting him up. And we're using this in order to help do some separation out for those planes. Some atmospherics there. Okay, next, going to get these foreground guys back in here. We're just getting them closer too. Like, I'm dropping this guy out. I'll just say that this is the guy in the corner. Just gets us into the situation closer. Okay. And we're going to move this guy some. Now, this guy was one of my issues with this piece. And that is because I can't account for why he's leaning back so far. I don't know whether he's been hit And if he has been hit, I want to see like an explosion coming off of his chest.
Bits coming off.
Yeah.
Debris.
And maybe potentially having like a out of the back, right? Like there's been a blowout of armor on the backside where he's been hit, right?
That could be good.
No, you could do it that way, and that can be really cool. Otherwise, let's stand the guy up more, something like this. And again, I scaled him up some so that he's making use of more of that real estate. The other thing it does is like it allows people to actually see more of that detail work that you put in. The smaller we get it, like the less people get to appreciate that.
Yeah, those pieces here are very cool. It's good to see them better.
So we're making him more vertical, and we're adjusting the legs a little bit so he's not leaning back. He's got just a back foot kind of planted there. Okay. What else do we do? I don't think there's too much else. Oh yeah, I just moved this little guy. Potentially moving this little guy in the corner. Okay. And then boosting some light. I think it would be nice if we get a little more of that blue. Some wonderful blue tone, but maybe we can move it up a little bit. Yeah. Something in that range. And you could go kind of crazy with this. Like, I made his sword bigger. It seemed a little puny compared to the size of this dude. So I'd scale it up some. And then we're just adding, like, edge lighting on some of these guys to make the explosion light seem more dramatic. Adding in more of these rocket flares and trails.
It's like a crazy battle.
Yeah. You could go more with it, yeah. I mean, you could have like rockets that are coming and landing closer, and that is a way like adding more of these will help to bridge kind of the each side of the image, and that's why I was adding like a couple of extras there. So, as you can see, it's just that. That's what I'm looking at. If you were giving it to me, that's what I'd do with it. Now, I don't know if that's your vision or not, but I feel like that gets me more of the cool stuff that I want to see in the image.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's a few questions in the chat. Alexi has a question for you.
Almost forgot. Any suggestion when given design is ridiculous?
Ridiculous.
And brief asked to depict something what is impossible. For example, this shoulder armor and your character should raise the hand. Yeah, so raise the hand up the shoulder. You are always going to be asked by clients to do ridiculous things and or impossible things. I have lost count of how many times that has occurred with what I've been asked. What you can do is, there's a couple of things you can do. One is just try it. All right. Sometimes it's going to look ridiculous. All right. Just understand that sometimes the image has to operate within the constraints of the property and the lore and the armor that's established and all that stuff.
Sometimes, like, an armor won't work the way they design it, and they give you the design. It wouldn't work in real life, but you have to just kind of pretend that it works when you're drawing it, and that might mean you maybe shorten it, maybe a little bit more than it should be shortened, or you let it disappear behind another piece of armor, you know, in a certain angle where you can't see the full length of it. You try to pose it in a way that conceals that, or you even extend the length of the arms maybe more than would be natural so that there's more room for all that stuff. So you got to play these little tricks so that it can work, or that it looks like it could work.
Yeah, they do that. Illustrators do that a lot in images. Is they kind of break the model in order to make it work. They do that in video games.
Oh, yeah.
They do that in movies all the
There's
time.
a guy who did one of these Space Marine models on ArtStation. I don't know his name, so I forget now. But he did remember, like, the big blue one, and he had him doing a bunch of animated poses. And, like, yeah, at a certain point, some of them, the armor just goes into the guy's head, right? Like, there's just nowhere for it to go. And they just let it happen because that's all they can do. Like, they can't make it not do that. So you kind of just have to adjust it and try to make things fit as best you can.
Well, the humans are quite small inside the armor. And so...
As we understand it, it's like an exosuit, right?
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah, it's like an exosuit. It's a power armor. To Alexi, if you really cannot find a way to make it work without making it look really bad or stupid, then you can pitch an alternative to an art director and say, all right, I have tried this. I've spent all afternoon on this. I've tried 7 versions of doing this. I can't find one that I think would fulfill the quality that you would expect. Would you consider this option as an alternative? And sometimes they say yes, sometimes they say no. Sometimes they say, no, I don't care if it looks, odd. It has to be that way because of
they do say
reasons.
That to you sometimes, and then you have no choice.
Yeah. But our job a lot of times is not to like design the characters. A lot of times the characters are pre-designed by someone else. They're not always designs that we love or don't work for our lighting scheme, our color scheme, our poses. But you do the best you can. Yeah. Oh. Yeah, upcoming Space Marine 2 game can be a good example for inspiration to how Space Marine movements and weights. Yeah, I'll tell you what, that Space Marine 2 game, that looks very good for Warhammer. They really pulled out all the stops on that thing. Okay, let's take a look at something else. All right, so we just have 2 left here. Let's take a look at this one. Okay, fantastically chaotic scene here. So many beautiful details in here.
I like how Ilya always, he does like different armors, different color schemes. Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, the variety here is nice, not just doing like one group of guys the whole time. And I like that we kind of have zones. We have like this kind of duller zone back here, but just for the big vehicle thing. This guy with the lightning bolt gives a very clear like focal point right here. And then we have our token foreground silhouetted characters, these guys charging in. Again, I see it as being a piece that can just be optimized with a little more plane separation, because this just starts running together. Now, values is only one of the tools that we use in order to separate areas of the image, because at some point you don't want to go lighter or darker in an area, otherwise it starts compromising the value scheme or the lighting that's actually taking place in the scene. So you have to use something else. And usually that's color or saturation. So what you can do is like make a half move with the values, but make a bigger move with the value with the color or the saturation, the hue shift or a saturation shift. Then that makes it look like there's a big separation without it being all value movement. Okay, so here, I don't remember what area. Okay, the first thing I want to do is just boost the mid darks in the value, because this looks pretty good on screen, but this is going to print physically very flat. And Warhammer is primarily a printed game. I assume you would be aiming for that. So we have to make sure this is going to print well. And if that's the case, you have to assume that everything is going to lose contrast. Like, if you print, the whites aren't going to be as white because they're not luminescent. It's not a computer screen. They're not illuminating light. And the blacks aren't going to be as black. So you can shift those down some. So it's going to be something like that. And then this saturation is just like never as saturated as you think. So you can bring that down like 10. Except for the reds. Can we do that? Channel mixer. Except for the reds, they always overprint. So we'd have to boost those up. So that would be like an approximation of what this would actually print like versus what it looks like on the screen. And then you kind of have to go overboard a bit with the computer version so that it prints well. Okay. That's why I have a curves here. It's just to boost the mids and the mid darks on these soldiers so that we get more of that detail retention in case it gets printed. Okay. Next thing, just trying to use, again, a little more of the real estate. These are all running about the same height. This guy, this pillar, this thing. So I'm just trying to get those up a little bigger just so that we have some more variety. That. And wanting to get some separation around this guy. The cloud color and this guy's color just blend together. And it kind of throws off my read. Certainly if it's smaller or if it's printed. Just trying to pull that a little bit. Okay, now down here, let's switch this to dark gray so we see. Down here, we're just kind of getting, I'm not saying it's a mistake because it could happen, but it's just this black silhouette line that basically goes all the way across the bottom. And I am with you that like having this dark foreground figure, probably this dark tree over here, but I would try to let it break at some point. Something like that. I'm just moving those two guys a little closer and letting that fire come down. And it makes it feel like there's kind of a dip there or something where they're coming through. Let's get a few words on how to depict crowd in the distance, how to reduce the value variation at the same time, keep the feeling of the people in the crowd. I mean, at the distance, you have to just start lowering the value contrast. I mean, you can just get a photo of a crowd, you know, in the fog or something, and look what it looks like. All you're getting is really that top shape and just having the rounded heads.
Just the silhouettes.
Yeah, it's just the silhouettes.
And then typically, you get just the light planes being lit.
Yep. Anything that's shadowed, anything that is not being lit merges together into one value. Then anything being lit is just one other value that's just one half value brighter than the shadow.
Yeah, that's how Ilya's able to pull this off so well, is just doing that.
Okay, so we're doing that with this guy. The next thing is the most drastic change that I'm going to suggest, and that would be to get these guys and move them in. I just feel like there is a fair amount of wasted space, and that it's kind of like there's one image right here with all the really cool stuff, and then about 40% of the image over here that doesn't have nearly the resolution and nearly the interest in it. So for the sake of the image, unless it really, really needs to be this aspect ratio, I would just move these guys in. We're just cutting out these three figures in the tree and shifting them in. I feel like this gets all the cool stuff and just puts it in a tighter package.
And increase the action.
Yeah. We lose out on really just some of these clouds and a couple of silhouetted guys back there. And that's the main thing. Okay. Next, again, just, hey, can we get that cool thing bigger? Making that a little bigger. And then wanting this guy to be more of a standout. So I'm just moving him up some. And we're going to start trying to get more out of this lightning. It's a really cool effect. It's central to the image, but it's... I would push it more. I think you could push it more. In order to do that, we need to give a darker tone behind it because we have light clouds with white lightning in front of them. And so we're not getting like
well, that's why
the contrast.
You know, when you do that, you have to push like really hard all the way to white. But then a lot of the times, if it's bright back there, there's just not enough space on the value range, and you can't go any whiter. So you have to go backwards on the background, darken it.
You could add spaceships or more elements in the sky. I don't know that this warrants having spaceships.
It's already so busy.
Yeah,
here.
it's pretty busy. Okay, next up, hitting it with some linear dodge. Trying to get more of that lightning effect. Getting more, not trying to necessarily make it as so much brighter as we're trying to infuse more color. So we're just getting more of that greenish teal light from the lightning, and then letting it do some little edge lights, some pop specular highlights on some of the surrounding armor, and just a little bit on the ground there from around that guy. Okay. Okay, next up, another change. This starts getting into artistic preference. Personally, I feel like having a sky that shares so much of the same reddish color as the foreground fire diminishes the power of the fire. In that, if everything is warm, the fire doesn't feel as warm. So I would start just making the sky more desaturated, more smoky. I'm just like, we're not getting sunset sky. We're just getting a lot more smoke. It's like the smoke that you have right here. And then we can get the guy into the smoke. So he's kind of lurching back there through the smoke. For me, when I pull out, this calms it a little bit and makes this seem more hot, more actiony than when I've got the same colors all up here. Maybe you feel differently. That's fine. It's valid if you want to do that.
It's an opinion.
It's an opinion. And then wanting to get some separation there because basically we're running the same values and the same colors all the way through this whole area. And it wasn't until I actually looked at this for a while that I realized that he is standing on the end of a wall that goes back and connects to this. So I think you could just put a little back, separation there, and then it kind of connects more to him.
Some suggestions.
Yeah. So you see the overall difference would be the suggestion there. Okay.
Okay, we got one more in the Warhammer special. Paintover special. Spectacular experience.
Okay, the last one is a standalone character. So for this, I was looking at these. Now, on this one, we've got a lot of the right beats in here, but I feel like it's not utilizing... we're not utilizing it as much. When I look at these, I was mainly looking at like this one and this one, when we look over here, I just see this one as being very powerful. It's very dynamic. The lighting is like this underlighting. There's a little edge light here. There's a little light here. There's lights inside of here. And it's this very sparsely placed light that creates lots of shadow contrast. Like some areas are black, some areas are bright. That's just a cool piece too. Again, it's very intentional lighting that has some subtlety to it and little edge lights and stuff. So looking at that, now also just looking at kind of the characters themselves. For me, I see that as being a little weak with the pose. You don't usually just see them standing there.
Well, sometimes you do. I've seen like the miniatures pose like that.
Yeah. I'm just seeing that like normally they've got their legs at least spread a little wider. And this looks like the knees are fairly close together. So I'll start by just trying to move the legs out, just in that kind of the normal width that they're at. And just, it's a stronger balanced stance. Okay. And then I think we get into the head. The head is blocked in, but it's not to the level I think it needs to be at for basically what is a portrait image. All the focus is going to go on this guy's head. And right now it's lit in a way where it's as if it's under a spotlight. The shadows are really dark, the lights are really bright, and we're not really getting kind of the subtlety that we would hope to get. Like, you know, you pull up on this, we're getting more subtle colors, subtle forms, edges, that sort of stuff.
And you have so much fidelity over here.
Yeah,
right?
And we've got a lot of fidelity in other areas. I think we've got to give another pass to the head and the face. So he was also very yellow. Now, I go over it and I cool it down here. I ended up bringing some warmth back into it to find a middle, but here you can see that I'm just trying to get out of like super yellow range, and then also just blocking it in so we see a little bit of the white of the eye and that he's kind of looking towards camera there. Okay. Now, we're wanting to pop this guy out. A lot of times on these, you can see that they use background tones to do that. This one just has a medium light back tone. Similar thing here, light sources behind him to pop the form, lighter value, or just kind of a lit fog, you know, to bring this guy to stand out. Same thing back here, right, lights behind him to stand him out. So I'm just adding the colors that were already there, popping it around him so that his edges stand out a bit more. And the gold. The gold, most of the gold is like, the render is excellent, but it's just maybe a little weak in the saturation and the warmth. And from what I could tell, like on this, like the golds have like a real richness of tone to them. So I was just kind of glazed over it with an overlay and then add some little pop lights on those. So more like that. Okay, here's where we start. I can't remember. No, that was a block in. I'm going to leave that one off. That was like me testing out an idea. Okay, now what I want to do is start adjusting the lighting a little bit following this idea. Okay. So instead of just treating it where like all of the upper body is receiving light, what I saw in a lot of these portraits is that oftentimes it was more localized in that only part of the upper body would get light, or only part of the head would receive light, like all shadowed, only the top's getting some light. Or edge light mainly, or just this part of the face is getting light and that part's in shadow. Same thing down here, just like 1/3 of the face getting light. So I want to start trying that just to make the light more nuanced. So treating it like we're getting light right here, but then it's getting darker back there. It's not going all the way across. So we start getting a darker edge along there. Yeah, okay. And then we're moving the arm. So here I just felt like he might have basically has his helmet kind of set on his thigh since his leg is up. And it just feels more at rest than like him holding it up against his chest. And because his arm is like adjusting a little bit, and I also feel like, it's a shoulder pad. You can't go too big with the shoulder armor on these guys.
You could go bigger, but you don't have to. I mean, it's just, you can because...
Yeah. Because it's Warhammer.
Yeah.
Okay, here is where we start seeing that lighting kind of change. Now we've got that lighting in a more narrow area. The fall off is a lot shorter. It doesn't go from here all the way to the edge. Now it's just focused on the head and shoulder area. Then the rest of it starts going into shadow. Okay, this is where we're just adding a bit of color back into the head. So you can see the kind of changes on that head. We go from that bright yellow to a little more nuanced shadow here, getting some light over there. Eyes are cutting back towards us. Okay. This is like complicated studio lighting. Yeah. Okay. Boosting some of that background firelight, trying to help pop his form out a little bit, and it just adds to the ambiance. And of course, anytime you've got a sword with freaking lightning coming off of it, we can definitely make use of that. So why don't we have some sword light? Yeah.
And since you shadowed the other side of the face,
yep.
Now we can put the light there, right? So if it's all bright, it doesn't really work.
Yep, and when we darken this down, now we can get proper pops of light on it. All right, and we can tell that leg a lot just by this one light. We don't need a lot of other light on it. So now we have two light sources working on him. We got this thin light hitting across this area, and we have the sword light, and then we have some of this fire light back here. Did you add the shadows via multiply layer or just normal layer or low opacity? Just normal layer. This is just a fast paint over, so I just went in manually. Yeah, sword light, linear dodge. Okay. Okay, what else was next? Oh, just boosting some of the values in the back a little bit. You could leave them the way they were. I just thought he popped out a little bit better if we took down the dark range a bit. And some final cleanup. Again, finding some spots in order to find corners and pop a little lighter tone around some of these corners in order for that silhouette to read better. And it's looking for opportunities like this side of it is lit and then it goes into silhouette on that side. Mm-hmm. Right. And that sort of gradation, eyes love gradations. That's why some of these are so strong. Everything is a gradation. It's going lighter or darker, warmer or cooler, more saturated or less saturated. Everything is constantly shifting so that you always have this like light, dark edge, soft edge, hard edge. And it keeps your eye moving around. And that's what we're trying to do, is create all these different kinds of pairs of dark on medium, dark against light, light against dark, medium against light, right? And these contrasts are really great for our eyes. Okay. Just indicating maybe a little bit more breeze. So just letting the fabric pieces blow around a little bit. Just give it a sense of a little more motion there. And last thing is just potentially just pulling in closer.
Yeah, unless it's a book cover and you have to have text there. But if you have no text, then you don't really need that empty space.
Yeah, I see a lot of these. I mean, they get right in on that character. Oh, that's more of a scene. But they just fill that up. And it's like, you feel a little small. So here, also added just a little of the fire embers kind of blowing around. Who doesn't like a little, fire embers, magic motes, all that sort of stuff. Yeah. So that would be the sort of change. Same subject, basically same color scheme, same general lighting, but we're just trying to get a little fancier with it. So yeah, that is the same sort of thing that I think you could do to several of these others, like this. As is, the scene is okay compared to some of the others that are more grand. But if we got that same sort of approach on this guy, I think it could really work. Yeah.
Yeah. Just play up the one side being more shadowed, one spotlight on him, and then those little pops of light in the corners. Maybe more, lighting or haze behind him. Yeah. Yeah,
that would be great.
There's only like 4 or 5 of these little tricks, right? And then you just apply them.
Yeah. It's the same ones, just over and over again. There's only so many ways to chop this up. This one has some really nice material rendering, but I would see about trying to get a bit more out of the pose. Like bend the knees slightly would be nice. Just a little squat to them, and potentially letting that arm bend a little bit as well. Just natural elbow bend right there. I think that would help overall. I love a lot of the rendering here of like this chipped paint over rusted metal thing. That's really well done. Loving the patina, the greens. So that's looking really nice. I was trying to think if there was any of these other pieces. Yeah, it's clear that you're quickly improving because, like you said, that was like an older piece, and it feels like you're already getting a lot of that stuff improved by some of the newer things.
That piece is very sophisticated.
Yeah. Something in that range. But I don't know what you would be asked to do if you do approach them about doing official work. Whether you'd be doing standalone characters, whether you'd be doing full scenes. I do recommend practice the faces. I feel like there is an extra level to the faces that you could get, and just doing that would elevate any of these scenes where the faces are close and dominant.
Spend like a couple of weeks just practicing portrait studies from photos, and then apply that on the next piece.
I don't know which process you used for all of these, obviously, but it has a look of something that was painted like in black and white and just colorized, and it generally leads to this like overly contrasty, really warm skin tone that doesn't have the kind of subtlety that real skin has. So I consider, like, if you're going to paint a face that is properly visible, just paint it straight up. In color, on its own layer. Yeah. Don't worry about trying to do it with, like, colorization.
When you colorize a grayscale face, it just ends up looking really ashy and washed out. Mm-hmm. It gets saturated in the wrong places, so it doesn't really doesn't work too well.
Yeah. Obviously, that's a minor thing. Like, this is another one where I think the bones work, but it could use a bit more. Yeah. Like, these guys, I don't know, these guys seem really clean. That would be something that I would consider trying to add some more dirt or stain or something to them. And then potentially, like, even letting that guy go in more silhouette. Just let the light basically hit this guy. And then start falling off a lot by the time it gets back here. But, you're killing it. All right, you're killing it. These are great scenes. And you're putting in a ton of work. It's rare to find somebody who's, like, really throws the hours into the pieces like this. So, okay. Well, took about hour 10. Well, that is all the paintovers that we have. We hope that you guys found that helpful. Ilya, especially.
Oh yeah, show Ilya's portfolio if people want to.
Yeah.
Look at his work on ArtStation, just to open up the thing there so they can see. So go check that out if you want to see more or you like Warhammer a lot. He's got a lot of pieces. We just didn't have time to go through that many.
If you want to pay him $5,000 to paint your favorite character, contact him about that. He might be willing to do that.
All right.
And also for us, if you enjoy seeing like a paintover stream like this, we would consider doing more like this in the future. Just because of the computer that I have, I can't really do it live. So we can prep more paintover streams possibly.
If you have like specific topics or content, this was Warhammer. I don't know what people want to see, so if you suggest it in the Discord, that would be really helpful. Also, next week we're going to go back next Thursday to the regular portfolio reviews. So there's been some more submissions. So this same time next Thursday, we'll be looking at 6 new ones. What else?
Well, if you do want a portfolio review, they are free for the live stream ones. And if you haven't submitted yours, feel free to go up to swatchesdiscord.com and go to the video submissions channel. And you can just post your link to your work in there. We probably won't get to it next week because we already have them lined up, but possibly it'd be the week after that that we get to it. Yeah. And if you want to get guidance on your career, your skills, setting goals, all that stuff, don't forget the kit is available on the site. And that's all we got.
Oh, we have consults too now.
Yes, we do have consults open. If you want to schedule a half-hour or hour consult and get a check-in private, one-on-one, about your portfolio, what you should be studying, whatever you want to go over, you can go into swatchesacademy.com and you can just look up there at the top where it says consultation and you can schedule one right there. Are you guys taking questions today or only next week? Hey, if you can get a question in quick, we'll answer it.
Type it in right now.
Yeah. We're about to wrap up, but if you've got a good one, I'll stick around for a minute. Yeah, Ilya, I want to see you doing some official work. I think
you enjoyed looking at all that 40K stuff.
I did. Yeah, for sure. How are we doing? We are doing well. You guys have any news about the character rendering class? Yes, I am working on that class. Announcements may be made about that class within the next week.
Yes, very soon.
Yes.
We were just trying to get the kit out. And so we put all our energy into that because we were so close to finishing, so we just wanted to get it finished.
How long does companies give to make a character illustration usually? Well, if you're talking about a double or AAA company, then usually they give you 6 weeks.
Yep.
Not that it takes 6 weeks to paint one of these scenes, but they assume that you have other clients and other obligations.
Also,
and that
it takes some time to give you feedback, so that always eats up a couple of days.
So probably 3 weeks in order to get them a concept to approve, and then 3 weeks after that to finish it and submit it. And then potentially it goes on longer. Like if they want changes done, then it can push into week 7, 8, 9, whatever the case might be.
Yep, those are the companies we're talking about.
Occasionally you might be asked to do a rush, and they might give you less time.
Sometimes it might even be a 1 week rush.
Yeah.
It has happened, but it's rare.
Yeah. I wouldn't count on it. Usually it's 6. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and stop it there. Thank you so much for everybody joining us. If you enjoyed the video, give the videos a like. Please, it really helps the channel. If you would just click the like button if you enjoyed this, if you got something out of it. Otherwise, we wish you the best, and we'll catch you next week. Take care, everybody.